To take or not to take? That is the question. And as TESL newbies, you probably don't really know what you need to take with you when you go on your first adventure. In fact, there might be things that you have no idea that you actually need. But fear not. Today, I'm going to give you a list of all the things that you should think about bringing with you on your first adventure overseas. I'm Teacher David, and this is TESL for Newbies. This week's episode, Step 5, is going to be a detailed list of all the things that I think that you'll need to think about taking with you when you head overseas. I'll break up the list into things that you must have, things that you should have, and things that wouldn't hurt. And then I'll let you know about the things that you can bring in a way that really helps you understand my reasoning. So I'm going to break down my list into a Likert scale of 1 to 7. 1 being unnecessary, 7 being absolutely necessary. And then I'll give you some specific reasons why I gave each thing the scale rating that I did. Now, you may disagree with my ratings, you may disagree with what I suggest you to bring. That's perfectly fine. If you do disagree, that gives you a better understanding of why you're going to bring or not bring the things that you decided to bring. Okay, so let's get started and let's get ranking. The first thing we're going to discuss is documentation. And the first thing that you need for documentation is a passport. Now, I know that you realize, of course, if you're going to go overseas, you need a passport. But most of the time, any travel agency is only going to ask you to have at least 6 months left on your passport before renewal is necessary. But since you know you're going to go for a year at minimum, I suggest if you only have 6 months or a little bit more than 6 months, under a year, renew it before you leave. Since your passport is necessary, and since having a year at least on your passport is necessary, of course I gave passport scale 7. The next part of documentation that you need is bringing backup ID. I put this at a scale 6. Backup ID for me as a Canadian was my birth certificate and my social insurance number or my SIN number. Now, the important thing to do when you bring up backup ID, first of all, is because you could lose your passport or it could get stolen. So you want to have backup ID to get another passport. That means when you travel, don't keep your passport, your main ID, and your backup ID in the same bag. Separate them so that way if one bag gets lost, you still have access to another bag which has more ID in it. The next thing we'll talk about is your degree, transcripts, and a license if you have it. So for example, and I put these all at a scale 7. So if you're going overseas, many schools, many governments need to see the original documents. So make sure you bring your original degrees with you if you have one or more than one. Likewise, get a certified original copy of your transcript. That way you can make copies of it there if that helps, or you can bring more than one. That way you can give them out as needed. And if you have a license, such as a teacher's license, make sure you bring the original of that too. Now, of course, you can send electronic copies to get everything started, of course, but when you get to the country you're going to, they're going to want to see the originals. So the next section is about electronics. Nowadays, smartphones can do just about everything, so I put them at a scale 7. You can do email, writing, whatever you need to do can be done on a smartphone. It's easy, it's compact, you can carry it with you, and you can get Wi-Fi access pretty much everywhere. So bring a smartphone. That's my suggestion here. Also, it's important to note that most schools, cram schools or elementary schools, whatever, they're going to contact you using some local app. Here in Taiwan, that app is Line. So a smartphone is what you need to set that up. So bring a smartphone. This last section of must-haves might seem a little bit odd, but give me a moment. You'll probably follow my logic. Clothing. I see appropriate clothing as a scale 7. Now, there's a reason for this. Depending on which country you go to, they have different requirements for what you wear at work, what you wear while you're in class. Now, of course, you can go to a store, you can buy clothing when you get there if that's your choice, so that way you can pack lighter. However, if there's a language barrier, you could find that very frustrating and very difficult at first. So I suggest bringing at least 1 week's worth of clothing, pajamas, daily clothing, home clothes at night. Bring at least a week's worth, and that gets you started well. And check what your country requires, what your school requires. For example, when I work in Taiwan, I wear a collared shirt, something like this, but I can even wear a t-shirt at my school. Just nothing too rough looking. But still, when I worked in Korea or Japan, I have to wear a shirt and tie and slacks with dress shoes. So you don't want to go out buying all of that when you first arrive. So make sure you find out what's needed before you go. And think about winter. Coming from Canada, I assume Taiwan, that doesn't have winter. It's not going to be cold there. I don't need to worry about bringing a winter jacket. Well, that was a bit naive. I got here, I drive my scooter, because scooters are everywhere here, during the winter months, which aren't cold like Canada, but it's cold when you're riding a scooter. I needed a winter jacket. I had to go out and buy one. So I strongly suggest think about what you need and pack appropriately. This last item under personal is travel medical insurance. This is a must-have unless you've heard otherwise from your school. So I'm going to give it a scale 6 to 7. So even if your school says they're going to give you medical insurance, you never know when it's going to kick in. Often it takes 2-3 weeks. Make sure you have coverage. You don't want to find yourself in a foreign country, unable to speak the language, injured, going to a hospital, and having to pay in cash. Get yourself some medical insurance. Now we're going to move on to the next section, which is should-haves, following the same order as we did above. So the first section then here, the first area in should-haves, is about documentation again. Now, I think I'm going to put it as a scale 5. You need to bring printed copies of your resume, CV. So that way, when you get to the school you're going to, you can hand them a printed copy, even though you've probably given them an e-copy already. Give them a printed copy which has all your information on it, so they can use that and add it to their file. Basically add it to their file. They're going to ask you for a printed copy regardless of whether you've given them an e-copy anyway. At least that's been my experience. Now the next thing I'm going to suggest is a notarized copy of your degree and your transcripts. I'm going to put that at about a scale 5. I think it's important to have a notarized copy or copies. Now, a notarized copy just means you've gone to a lawyer, they've made a copy for you, stamped it with their notarization stamp, and now it's essentially exactly the same as, legally speaking, as a degree. You can hand that out to companies or schools that you would like to work for, and they can keep that. That way, you can, be a little bit more careful with your original documents. You don't really want to be handing them out, even though you need to bring them, kind of willy-nilly to anyone. Give them a notarized copy, and it'll probably do just fine. The final part of this section is driver's license and international driver's license. I rate these at around a scale 4 to 5. Now, you bring your original driver's license for the main reason that the country you're going to might have reciprocity with your home country, which means you can just go right there with your ID, your driver's license, and get a local license. You don't even have to do the test. That's fantastic. Many countries have reciprocity nowadays. Check it out. However, if you're unsure or you don't want to take the risk of something going wrong, bring along an international driver's license. They're valid for a year. It's a great thing to have. In fact, my Canadian driver's license has long expired, so now when I leave Taiwan and go to Canada, I bring an international driver's license with me. That way I can drive legally in Canada. So, international driver's license, very cheap. Just need a little ID, a photo ID. They'll glue it in. You're all set. Now, regarding electronics, there are two suggestions I have to make. The first one, bring a laptop. Now, I know I just said a smartphone can do everything. However, I still think a laptop should be seen as a scale 5. It's still very valuable. Depending on the school that you work at, you're going to need to make worksheets, quizzes, exams, syllabus, lesson plans. That's much more easily done on a laptop than it is a phone, at least in my opinion. So it really, I guess, depends on you, but I think it is a very valuable tool to have. Also, when you record grades, all of the work that you're going to need to do, it's pretty hard, I think, to do that all on a smartphone. And the last thing I'm going to suggest is where you're going, check out what are their wall plugs like. You probably, or at least likely, will need a plug adapter of some kind. Here in Taiwan, I'm lucky that the wall plugs are the same as the ones that are in Canada. So I don't need to buy an adapter. However, when I lived in Korea, I did have to get adapters because the wall plugs aren't the same. So think about where you're going, find out, look online. It's very easy to find out. I just showed a picture here of many of the adapters that are available, and get adapters before you go. Now, in the personal section, the first thing I'm going to suggest is a Lonely Planet book. I think that's a scale 4 to 5. You might be able to get an ebook now of that, or you can look online. But what happens if your Wi-Fi is down or you have no internet access? Lonely Planet books have been the staple for travelers for years and years and years. I still think it's an invaluable resource if you can find one for the country you're going to. The next thing I'm going to suggest is get some kind of phrase book. Again, scale 4 to 5. I think it's kind of great to have like an emergency or daily routine kind of phrase book. I used mine when I first got here in Taiwan. It helped me a lot. It's not perfect. For example, when I got my scooter, I pulled into the gas station, didn't know how to say fill it up in Chinese. So I just sat there and kind of went, kind of miming what I thought was adding gas all the way. It was terrible. It was embarrassing. Try to find out some of the things that you need, and a phrase book can help you a lot. Okay, we're moving on now to the section I call wouldn't hurts. So these are the things that it wouldn't hurt you to have them. They're not necessary. They're on the lower end of the Likert scale, but you might find them helpful. So the first section is I suggested above to get an international driver's license, but it would be good if your international driver's license showed that you had a motorcycle license. Many countries in East Asia, Southeast Asia that you go to, you can actually drive scooters. So if you have a scooter license or a motorcycle license, actually, that will help you a lot. Another thing that you could think about is bringing an expired passport. Remember I mentioned above about bringing a second set of ID? If you bring an expired passport, even though it's not valid, it still shows who you are, and it might help you get started on the path of getting a new passport if your ID is lost. The next section then is electronics. So this is quite easy because just think about bringing a power bank. You go to an airport. Well, what happens if you don't have your adapter inside your bag, your carry-on? Uh-oh, how are you going to charge your phone now? Have a power bank. You never know when it can come in handy. You can get them. There's lots of sizes. They're very useful to have. Another thing that I think you should really think about bringing is a USB or some form of memory stick. Depending on the school you're at, your computer that you work on might not have direct access to the printer that you need. So what you need to do is download everything to your USB, go over to the printer, plug it in, or to the computer that's attached to the printer, and print out your stuff. It seems like a small thing, but if you don't have that ability, you're just going to make your life a little bit more difficult for yourself. Finally, on a personal level, I'm going to suggest you bring some toiletries. I'll put this at a scale 3 to 4. Now, of course, you can buy toiletries when you get to the country you're going to. But like I mentioned above, sometimes it could be confusing. You might not even be able to read what it is that you're looking at. So you go into the store, you want to buy toothpaste, and you buy hemorrhoid cream. Don't do that. So I suggest until you get started, until you get your feet wet in the new situation, the new culture, bring the basic stuff. Bring a toothbrush, bring toothpaste, bring deodorant. Have everything that you need to get you started. And when you figure things out down the road, talking with coworkers, talking with students perhaps, then you can get your other stuff while you're there. Also, cash. Make sure you have some cash from the local cash, the cash of the place you're going to. Make sure you have some of that in your pocket already. So now you can go to your bank at home and very likely get your money converted there. Or in the airport, there's lots of cash conversion sites. You can get it converted there. But it's really useful to have cash in your pocket. And as a side note, make sure your ATM card is hooked up to an account that can work overseas. And if you're not sure about that, talk to your bank. Or even perhaps more, a safer option, bring a Visa card. So I have an honorable mention here. What it is I think you should bring some fun items. And I'm going to put this right up to a scale 6, because after a week or 2 weeks, you're going to kind of already start getting into the groove, and you're going to have a lot of downtime. You're going to be bored. So what can you do? Until you make friends, until you start to kind of know your surroundings, well, you can sit at home. You can watch Netflix if you've got yourself a Netflix account before you go overseas. Bring a card game or a board game. As a Canadian, there's a game called cribbage that's very popular. I met a Canadian at the school that I worked at. Now, he was from Calgary, so that's unfortunate. But hey, we had a great time playing crib together, and once in a while chess. So these are things that you can do. I mean, after all, do you want to spend every night at the pub? So in conclusion, being overprepared, I think, is probably better than being underprepared. But remember, everything that you bring, you need to lug around with you. From the airport to the hotel to your new place that you're going to stay at. Everything has to go with you. So I tried to limit myself to just 2 bags, as most airlines suggest. I had 1 big suitcase and a hockey bag. I filled it up as much as I could, stayed under my weight limit, took them with me. That way I could put the hockey bag on top of the suitcase and drag it along behind me. All right, so next week, we are going to finish stage 1. We're going to do step 6 of stage 1. And we're going to be discussing some ways that I think you should get prepared for the reality of what's going to happen to you. Now, some of the things that I say next week could be a little bit controversial. I'll hope to try to keep the controversy to a minimum, but there are some truths about traveling overseas that perhaps you're unaware of, and you should really get to know them. All right, I'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye for now.